So I just finished a radio interview with Jerry Clayton of Texas Public Radio. You can find him here on TikTok. I've tagged him in this video. His name is Radio Flyer. I did a short little segment with him. He asked me some questions about oil and gas and EVs and stuff. Texas Public Radio. It may get picked up by NPR. Don't know yet. We'll see. But thank you, Jerry, for having me on. But this video is to address some questions I've been getting recently. I've seen a lot of commentary from you about electric vehicles and their shortcomings, and I agree. Curious about your thoughts on hybrids at a macro scale as a better path to lowering carbon emissions. Seems like a more logical approach without the problems that EVs have with range, longevity, and cold weather. So just to be clear, I have really not been critical of EVs. I have been critical of U.S. policy mandating EVs. I have definitely been critical of that, but I haven't been critical of EVs in and of themselves. People should be able to drive whatever they want. And, if you want to drive an EV, drive an EV. If that suits your lifestyle and meets your purpose and gets you to work and back and does all the things you need a vehicle to do, then you should get one. As far as hybrids being a more logical solution, I do think hybrids would be a lot more popular and beat out EVs hands down easily. And I also believe that is why the EV mandates are coming out. Because by 2032, a car cannot emit, or the average of the fleet cannot emit more than 73 grams of CO2 per mile. About the cleanest hybrid out there currently emits 195 grams per mile. What that means is, under the new EPA tailpipe emissions rules, hybrids don't cut it either. This would have to be cut by more than half to meet that standard. And my concern with the EVs is that outside of Tesla, U.S. automakers have not shown us that they can build an EV and be profitable and sustain themselves. They have shown us that with hybrids. They have not shown us that with EVs. And the U.S. auto industry is much bigger than just U.S. automakers. It is also the thousands and thousands of companies and millions of people that work for those companies that support the auto industry. It is one of the largest economic drivers in the United States. It's one of the things that drives our economy more than anything in the United States is the automotive industry. Not just automakers, but the entire industry. And to place these kinds of mandates on them, forcing them to do things that they haven't shown us they can do at all, is very concerning to me. The automotive industry is so huge, we bailed them out during the Great Recession. That's because a collapse of the automotive industry in the United States would have led us into a Great Depression. And instead, we just struggled through a Great Recession. And I heard a lot of talk and comment and saw policy about training people in the coal industry that were going to get forced out and training them to work in renewables. I heard a lot of talk and policy about people who work in the oil and gas industry and training them up so they can transition to the renewable industry, so these huge industries don't undergo massive unemployment and hurt our economy. I haven't heard a word about retraining automotive workers and the millions of people that work in support of the automotive industry. I haven't heard a word about that. And I am really concerned about what is going to happen to those people. And I have always thought that hybrids were the logical first step towards a cleaner world because, one, people will buy them and people will accept them, and you can build them and people will buy them. There's two parts to that equation. And if you build EVs that people won't buy, you're not helping the climate, you're hurting it, because the manufacturing of an EV is very carbon intensive. And if you can't get the people to buy them, you've actually made the climate worse. And people talk about how, drastically EV sales have risen. It is a bit of a misnomer, because when you're starting from zero, it can look amazing. It can look like you have this, you're just on a rocket ship when you're starting from zero. But now that we've gone through a lot of early adopters of EVs, those are people that always wanted to buy one, we have seen sales slow way down. We've seen, Tesla sales drop by, I think it was 8%. Don't quote me on that. We've seen Ford lay off 2/3 of its workers at its Ford Lightning facility. And to quote the automotive industry, when the new EPA standards came out, the automotive industry, they basically got what they wanted. And they said it's going to be very challenging. The fact is, they didn't get what they wanted. They got what they thought they could get. And when an industry the size of the automotive industry comes out and says this is going to be challenging, that's a little bit of semantics. You know how a football team will come out and say, after a very bad year, they'll come out and say they support their head coach right before they fire his ass? The automotive industry saying this is going to be challenging is the exact same thing. That is automotive industry speak for we think we're fucked. That's what it's going to be challenging means. And another very important point, if you get an opportunity, I would suggest you read anything Robert Bryce has written about the deindustrialization of Europe. Because all of these emission standards that they have implemented across Europe has essentially deindustrialized the whole area. And all of that industry is just moving to other countries. We are just not at a place where you can have a lot of industry and no emissions. That's just not a thing. So Europe is in very big trouble in the future because they have lost so much industry. We went through a phase of industrialization. Now we're going through a phase of deindustrialization. And it's not reducing emissions. It's only reducing emissions in their countries, but it's not reducing emissions globally. So if you don't control where and how emissions occur, and you just say, not here, then there's still always going to occur, and you're not going to affect climate change, and you're only going to harm your own economy. So we need a very thoughtful, science-based approach to how we do this. Because if we follow Europe's lead, we're just going to drive right off of a cliff, just like Europe did. And you have to think outside the box, and you have to stop listening to politicians. We are continually told that renewable electricity is cheaper. Yet if you look at the 5 states in this country that have the most renewable energy per capita, they also have some of the highest electricity rates in the country. And that is because it's not cheaper. It might be cheaper for the company to build, but it doesn't mean they're going to charge you less. That just means there's more money they can stick in their pocket. So they're going to make you pay for the wind. They're going to make you pay for the construction of the solar, and then you are going to pay even more every month on your electric bill. That is what we are seeing all across the country where we have huge renewable projects going on. Just because renewable energy may be cheaper to produce doesn't mean it's going to save you $1. Because there is still a corporation standing behind it deciding what to charge you for it. Thanks.